Is this the 3 hour meeting tonight?
I was thinking 4 or 5.
Okay, all
but
right.
no, we should be done. Well, I mean, with questions, 45 minutes probably is what I'm thinking. Aaron talks really, 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 really fast. There you go. I know you guys have an executive session after this, so try to get through this. These are just a lot of updates. You've heard about a lot of these projects already, so it's good. Keep trying to keep you up to date on what's coming your way. A lot of it for resolutions for bid awards and that sort of thing.
They're gone. Skip batch, but they're done. Did you try one?
I actually did.
Yeah.
It's good. It was my lunch.
I told my eighth for dinner yesterday, like 10.
Everybody survived the parade and events. Good.
It was nice.
Busy,
Glad it
wasn't
didn't
it?
rain.
Busy. Both nights were busy.
How'd you end up doing? I saw you were packed. I was standing room only in your store. Actually, yours and the other gift shop.
It's actually numbers was better for the tree lighting ceremony.
Nice.
The parade was?
Yeah.
Saturday night was better than Friday night, numbers wise?
Friday night, actually numbers.
Oh, Friday was better. Yeah,
for the
Yeah.
store anyway.
I think more people, yeah.
And we went in there, we couldn't even, it was standing room only.
Yeah.
It was like.
Oh, Friday was crazy. That little
Goodbye.
train ride was.
It was the same, the other store down the street was the same way. The other store, they were
Awesome.
packed. With probably 30 people in there.
That's
So did
right.
you, but people had to move so you could move.
You know,
So busy. It's a good problem to have though.
The idea behind it.
He even went over to me and the boys, even went over to. He just popped already. That was a fast minute. Welcome to the study session, December 10th, 2024. Donna, you do a roll call, please.
I will. Councilmember Flush.
Here.
Councilmember Stearns. Here. Councilmember Gilmore.
Here.
Mayor Nesco.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Sherman. Here. Councilmember Sack. Here. Councilmember Greenberg.
Here. Thank you, Donna. Public Works Director Jay Harris and Assistant Public Works Director Aaron Nix had an update regarding capital projects, gentlemen.
Good evening, I'm Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council Jay Harris, your Public Works Director. So we have a capital projects update. We selected what we thought was sort of the important projects we're working on, wanted to give you an update on them. With that, if there's projects that you don't see in here, ask us questions at the end of this presentation, please do that. So first slide, I just wanted to show you completed projects. Well one pipeline project, that was a very large project. They're just wrapping up some chlorine buildings and doing some minor adjustments and sort of that thing. It's good because we got rid of our gravity water line. It is now pressurized. It was mandated by the state. This was a project that they wanted for water quality purposes. And anyways, good project. It's already cut down our chlorine usage, which has been really good. Safe routes to school, you guys have seen all those projects. Well used. When you go over by Safeway, almost every time you go through there, you see one of those intersections being used. And then the last one is Capitol Hill paving. We got a lot done with the county up there, and it was a great project that it was recently completed. Next slide. And I'll jump in and do this one. And then Aaron, we'll just flip flop back and forth like we did the last time. Sure. So Angleside pressure zone improvement. So during the preparation of the water comprehensive plan, which went on from the start of my career here about 4.5 years ago, we were working on it then. It was a project that we just recently completed with the state. They've approved it and we're all done. But we found that and when I started here, we had a couple million gallons of storage. And it was like, God, for a city this size, that just seems a little small. Well, the water comp plan said, hey, you don't have enough storage. So what it is we're getting some storage out of the existing tanks right now with some piping projects. And I'll go through some of the other things we're doing to take the dead storage out of the Angle Side and the Mountain View tanks, which gains us about 1,000 residential units worth of additional capacity. It gets us caught up and we have 1,000 more. So we bought some time with some projects, but this Angleside project is one of them. So we got to get it done to get that reservoir storage back. So we received 1.8 million from the Department of Commerce in 2023 to look at how to eliminate that dead storage and to construct some identified improvements. BHC completed a report on what we needed to do, and now they're well into preparing the construction plans. And so when I talk about the Angleside pressure zone, it's the pink in the bottom of the PowerPoint up there, the slide. And so that's the Angleside pressure zone. It goes from like Lake Boulevard is sort of the highest area, all the way down to the main wastewater plant down at the bottom. So there's quite a bit of elevation in that pressure zone, which will be alleviated in the future. We're going to cut it into 2 pressure zones in the future. Next slide. So yeah, Aaron, actually, let me complete the project.
Yes.
Last time it was a slide for each thing and it worked out pretty good. So anyways, you can see here the first phase of improvements is to remove the dead storage from the 500,000 gallon reservoir. So there's about 250,000 gallons we can't use. The reason is when you drop the elevation in the reservoir, fire flows is what I'm talking about in this instance, that if it's not replenished, the houses right around the reservoir, their pressure drops too. You can't get below 30 PSI per the state requirements at the meter at those houses. So we can't go lower than half reservoir. What this project does is we're using the existing station that's in there. They're going to sustain the pressure. So if there's a big fire, the reservoir levels are dropping. This station turns on, you stop. You're using water from the reservoir, but it's pumping it in and keeping it at that full elevation of pressure until the fire goes away. Then the station turns off and the reservoir fills back up again. Very unusual events to take that much water out of a reservoir though, right? This would be probably a pretty large fire, but it's in the modeling, it's in the comp plan. Because of the number of units we have, we need to go there. But with this online will give us the second half of the tank, which gets us caught up in our fire demands for the residential that we're short. And then it gives us that additional capacity. In this particular reservoir, I think we're gaining about 700 units out of that. And Mountain View is about the same from our members. So we'll get quite a few housing units, ERUs, equivalent residential units. And the reason why we call it an ERU, I'm programming you guys with a lot of stuff, is because you can have like a Costco, okay? We divide their water fire flow amounts by the ERU amount. So everything's an equivalent residential unit. So a Costco might be 80 ERUs, right? Where a house is just 1 ERU. So it allows us to keep our use, we could track our use of how many residences can still, or ERUs can still connect to the reservoir. So, so we're working on the lower station, which is down in the maintenance yard. It pumps water up to the tank currently. This station is not activated. The upper station that's shown on the top, it will be activated, it'll be online. It'll be a pressure sustaining station, won't turn on very often though. But the reason why I underline sustaining is the Angleside zone continues to go up above the reservoir. It's not all the way at the top of the hill. So there's a bunch of units, and I'll show you in a second, that we can't serve with this particular configuration. So in the bottom there is the existing station that fills the reservoir. We're putting new pumps in there. We're putting in new pump controllers. They're called variable frequency drives. They allow us to ramp up and ramp down. And so both stations, the upper and the lower, will have VFDs, and we'll be able to talk together with telemetry. So future projects will be a higher reservoir. Next slide. So if you look here at the map, you can see at the top is the existing Angleside station. There's an arrow that points to it. And the pressure sustaining station is right next to it. Well, Coffee Creek is about at the upper parts of Coffee Creeks is very similar to about houses around the station. So they shouldn't have pressure problems. This is how many units were in Coffee Creek?
365.
There you go. I had 370. So we were right there. They're doing their water analysis right now. It should be completed soon. You see the word Meridian there. That's going up the hill a little higher. We have some existing development. What is the name of like where Jason Doe's lives? What's the name?
Meridian Park.
It's Meridian Park. There you go. So at Meridian Park, they have maybe 38 PSI. Remember I said you had to have 30 at the houses. So they're getting close to running out of pressure. So where it says Meridian there, that's a proposed development. They're going to be analyzing the water system right there. You go up higher than that, you run out of pressure. The potential reservoir site is getting near Lake Boulevard. We're gonna have to acquire some land for that. The city doesn't own any land in the area. But in the future, that will add the additional pressure to the area. So what you'll do is you'll use the pressure sustaining station. It will fill this reservoir in the future. And then somewhere around, Coffee Creek and the existing houses around the reservoir, this will be this new upper pressure zone. We'll have pressure valve, reducing valves down the hill. And so we'll have two different pressure zones, one up really high, and then the existing tank right now will serve the lower areas. And so that's like 10 years from now. Next slide.
Any
Sure.
questions on Angleside? I
Yeah,
guess.
I threw a lot of stuff at you guys.
Just that we still gonna need that 1.5 million gallon tank for any further development after the 700 homes.
That's correct. To fill out the rest of that area within the urban growth area there, we're gonna need additional reservoir capacity up higher. And so some of it is quite a large area that still needs to develop. You can pump water from a tank to serve a larger area. But a lot of times you get the water there, and if something happens to that station, these people don't have good water, especially for fire flows. Advantageous for a higher number of units, 1,000 units or more, to have a tank actually there at the elevation that they need it at. So you'll see some developments where maybe there's 100 lots or something, they're on a water pump station because they're up a little higher. You don't want to do very many of those. They're not the most reliable. Having that tank there is reliable water because you pump it into the tank and then it's released. If there's problems with the pump station, you have some time because the tank level starts to drop, right? And then we get alarms and all that. So we can go fix the pump stations and figure out other ways to get water and to fill the reservoir up. So the answer is, yeah, we're gonna need a reservoir. The comp plan doesn't call for, it calls for somewhere around 800,000 to 1 million gallons there in the future. And that will allow us to maybe take some other assets offline in the city too, aging assets.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No more questions? Ready? Oh, okay. Crosstown Trail, rail removal project. So this was project, I think initially, I think community development was kind of thought process. We need a cross city trail. Would be awesome to get people to places. So if the council doesn't know this, the city acquired the Simpson Railroad property in 2020. The railroad crossings at Coda and at 10th Street and Railroad Avenue were removed with the roadway project in 2023. The city actually received 2 grants in 2024. One for 275,000 for design of what we're calling the Crosstown Trail Phase 1 and Phase 2 projects. You can see how they're color coded down below. This is kind of how we've arrived at this. The intent with this project is ultimately we're going to be doing some master planning components of that But in addition, clearly we're going to need to have communication with our public. I've been out there, I've walked that a couple times and I've had people come out and say, so what are you guys doing? Could I get a fence? That kind of stuff. So there's a lot more planning work that needs to happen on this project, but what we're trying to do is we're trying to move forward with showing some progress on getting it to the point where we want it. Again, phase one is basically the purple area, starting from the Western Gateway. This goes all the way out to 101. That's the intent with this particular project. And then what we're calling phase two is Nealon to the marina. That would be phase two. And we do have the one grant for 275,000 from WSDOT. That's for planning and design. We have a second grant for 199,000 from the Department of Commerce. And this is planning design for the State Route 3 trail from Nealon Park to the Shelton Yacht Club. So we have master planning money to basically do the entirety of the project, which is a very positive thing.
And the 199 is a direct appropriation from our state delegation, so
Thank you.
part of that legislative agenda, right, is portraying what our community needs are, and our delegation acted, accordingly this last year, and not only funded a water or transportation project at Wallace Newman Boulevard, but also the trail design.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. I believe that all of the council, I think you were on when we passed this budget, there was $100,000 budgeted in 2024 from park funds to begin planning, design, demolition, and partial construction of the railroad trail. We are moving forward with that. We hired on our on-call roster, we hired Century West to help us prepare kind of a big bid package for this project. To remove the existing railroad tracks, the ties, the switches, and then basically level the grade from Nealon Park all the way to 101. When you take that stuff out, you're going to have divots and those types of things. So that needs to be taken care of.
The goal is to get ourselves mobile so we can run mowers through the whole removal areas that, over time they'll mow up. The mowers will help level it out a little bit. We hope to get it hydro seeded with a grass seed mix too. So it's more maintainable. Right now, we can't drive on it. The rails are up pretty high and it's very difficult for us to do anything out there.
One thing that I think the council is going to like a lot is that we are going to be able to sell the steel associated with this. Initial estimates are about, and I'm estimating way low, about $300,000 for that. In addition, our understanding is the landscape companies, of which we would basically have an outfit. They would basically buy it from us and then they would recycle it, do what they need to do with it. Landscapers really like those creosoted logs. So thinking we may get up to $5 a piece for those. So the intent with getting that money is we're going to put it right back into the project to complete that master planning, but probably some construction funds too.
This is
For
just
sure.
gonna be the first trail, not the blacktop or walking.
Most likely, we're
Yeah.
not going to get to the point of an
Financially,
service,
yeah. And council, you really, some of the things, there are a lot of things, mandates that are thrown at us. One of the things that is becoming more, and at least in my other places, I've experienced that, is stormwater management. And we're kind of entering a period where we're going to get a pretty good comprehensive stormwater management plan. Part of the problem with constructing these is that when you start adding certain percentages of impervious, you have to do the stormwater management. That candidly is almost half often of the construction cost just for the project. So it can get very expensive, but we do have some innovative ways in which we can deal with that. We can do pervious asphalts, we can do pervious concretes, those kinds of things. But there's trade-offs with that. We'll get further into that, I think, as we get into the master planning component of this. So the preliminary desired amenity is basically a 12-foot wide paved path separated from traffic, lights, benches, garbage cans, public art, interpretive signs, protective crossings of Railroad Avenue and State Route 3. One of the things that we are going to do is the remaining rail components. There are still some switches, there are still some lights. The city is going to save those with the intent of potentially in the future utilizing that for wayfinding. somehow putting signage on these structures so that you maintain that rail kind of mystique along your pathway, which is something that I think is very positive. So next slide, please. All right, the goal is to open the Goldsboro Creek Railroad Bridge prior to the construction of the final trail improvements. Part of the next project design will be to evaluate the structure. It's a fairly older structure, but it carried rail, so it's very stout. So we know that for sure. And obtain the needed permitting to meet State Shoreline Act. That is, if folks don't know, Goldsboro Creek is waters of the state. So it is regulated. It's co-regulated by us in the Department of Ecology. Once the final designs, cost estimates, community outreach is completed for both projects, construction funding will then need to secure that with the hopes that we will have some from the recycling of those materials. The benefits, this connects the city's most heavily used park to schools and high density residential areas in our downtown. It eventually connects the two parks and rides, safe route to school for hundreds of students, for sure. Tourism potential along a historic and scenic corridor. Builds a spine for an improved pedestrian network, which we know is very important. A lot of the funding agencies require that anymore. And then possible trail-oriented development. We had a very similar type of thing here in Auburn, and that mayor at that time, he was very much about trying to find amenities to support that. He was actually changing some of the zoning to kind of attract those types of businesses to that area. But that was a big ECDev piece for him, Mayor Lewis, several years ago. So go ahead, please.
Yeah, trail development is at the top of our list, our Parks Recreation Open Space and Trails Plan. The community has broadly supported the development of not only nature trails, bicycle, walking trails, multi-purpose trails in the last, what we used to call just the Parks Plan, now it's the Coast Plan, Parks Recreation Space and Trails Plan. So this certainly meets the highest goals and highest projects, ranked projects from our community over the last, probably 16 years.
Right. I will tell you, just because I've been engaged and involved with the planning component, and there is so much money for trails out there as far as grants. Now, I know it's competitive. Mark and I've talked with other staff, RCO, which is the main granting agency for parks. It's super competitive, and you have to be prepared to go deal with them, because I tell you, everybody else has their consultant basically putting on the presentation for them. They do everything for it. So I unfortunately have not worked at a lot of jurisdictions that have the money to do that kind of stuff. So I had to kind of do that on my own. And there are ways to get through it. You just have to really know what you want and really paint that picture of the need and desire for that. So
that picture there, this is the Chehalis to Tenino Trail, heavily used during the summer, a lot of bicycles on that. They also have events, bike events that I live in that area. The road gets closed down. The bikes are more important than the cars because it does cross it in some spots. But that's asphalt concrete, 10 to 12 feet in width is typically pretty common for two-way traffic, for people walking and for bikes also. Wayfinding signs important. Also rules of the road type of signs are important, for bikes and pedestrians. So because it's a shared space, right? This particular one, the storm drainage is likely off to the side in these moat areas. They do let it grow up, during this spring month picture, which is nice. It's pretty natural. This is a little more rural. The trail that goes along SR3, from Neyland to the yacht club, likely you're not going to see much of this. But the railroad trail, you're going to see quite a bit of this because there are some larger open areas, and we can decide sort of how to program them with parks, right? And what are we looking for the final designs, and what does it look like 5 years later, which is even more important.
perfect. Next slide, council. This next project scares me to death, and I think we'll talk about it. And we do need to talk about it, just because of a lot of things. Christmas town, big trees, those kind of things. With that, Jay.
Yeah, Senior expectations here. So, so 2021, we had the downtown trees. They're pushing up the sidewalks and they've got worse, obviously, since then.
Really bad. Yeah.
And so the assessment recommended that we remove the majority of the trees over the time. The trees are, Cleveland Select pears. They, as they get larger, weren't planted with root barriers. And, typically that variety, if you did have root barriers, they don't push up sidewalk or streets that hard, but they are searching water, these bigger roots, and they are destroying the downtown streets. If a root barrier was put in the 90s, you probably wouldn't be seeing as much of this. They've probably been a little bit more successful.
For council's benefit, a root barrier is basically a 2 feet sheet that you basically put within that well, and it makes the plant grow deeper away so that it doesn't heave the concrete.
I haven't seen a city that hasn't had this problem. Anywhere
That's
I've
correct.
gone.
This is not unusual.
6
We're
months.
we're in a club with a lot of other people, unfortunately. So if you look at the note on the right, 1995 is when they were planted. The biggest threat to these trees, though, is limb shearing. So heavy winter ice, these pear trees can't handle loading. They get brittle over time. And so the lifespan, if you look these trees up, are like 40 years. Whereas there's a lot of other trees that make it 80, 100, 120, that sort of thing. Because you get a lot of major shearing. When I say shearing, half the tree goes away. I came from the Portland area. They planted these all over the place in the 80s and the 90s. And probably half of them are sheared off due to they get more ice down there
Freezing.
and heavier snow events. But we get them here though also, and as they get bigger, they're just gonna be problematic. So, anyways, you can't go cut the roots. The reason is if you go pull up the sidewalk, try to trim off the bigger roots, you've hurt the stability of the tree. The wind will blow it over onto a car or the street or whatever. So the arborist recommends to take them out. And so, anyways, and then in 2022, council recommended that we wanted to see how the tree replacement would work with the downtown visioning plan, the 2016 visioning plan. Next slide. So we hired Jones and Jones and we did a conceptual streetscape of what that would look like. To meet the elements of the visioning plan, wider sidewalks, the curb gets removed, moved out, storm side planters, new tree locations, all that. That's great, except we needed over $1 million or more to do the project, right? And so it isn't in our type of budgets. A little difficult to get grants for that sort of thing also. So, anyways, what we recommend though is to do sort of a diet version of that. So the water line downtown from 7th all the way down to 1st needs to be replaced. It's old in ages from the 50s. We've had some issues with it. It's still good. It still works, but it does need to be upgraded in the future. When we do that, we're gonna be in there, obviously excavating out the water line, putting in new valves, and putting in new services. We're gonna overlay the road at the same time. That's the time when we really look at additional street improvements, whether you want to widen some sidewalks, take out some parking, narrow the center, whatever it all the mix is. And that's currently we're looking at the water line replacement for somewhere around 2030. So some years out. But we thought that project to look at maybe reorganizing the streetscape a little bit needs to happen at that time. Next slide. So right now we have current issues. We have trees that are nearing end of life, significant sidewalk issues that aren't going away. We went and we grind every year. The high spots, we're nearing the end of grinding now, where the concrete's getting thinner and thinner and thinner. So we need to do something about that. So we're proposing, here's the map of proposing trees that we're going to be removing. And so where the R is at the bottom on the legend, they're to remain. And those are existing trees that haven't shoved up the walk. They are newer and they have a root barrier in. And so there's a few of them that are still remaining. The remaining trees, there's Schedule A, B, and C. This project can get a little expensive. So what we did is, hey, we know we want to do Schedule A. They're the worst of the worst. Those are the sort of the violet purple color there. And Schedule B is green. So we want to go out to bid. And our estimated cost right now is about $410,000. And Schedule A is, I'm sorry, we have a budget of 410. That Schedule A is 271, B is about 69,000, C is 58,000. That's what we're estimating. We'll know a lot more when we go to bid with this project though. And it's going, you can see it's going down Dakota. If you walk that area, you'll see what we mean here. If you guys want to take this map and walk around for a minute and then get back to us if you have any comments about thoughts about each tree and all
Jay,
that.
describe the tolerance for grinding, right? We've got a tolerance between where a seam in the sidewalk, lift.
Quarter inch is considered, anything over a quarter inch is considered a tripping hazard. So we go in and we'll grind that down. The problem is during the spring season, you can get more than a quarter inch of raise. Those trees are growing fast and they're getting big. And so we have gone out there in the spring and ground, and then at the end of the summer, gone back out and had to go do it again, right? So in terms of thickness, the concrete's about 4 inches thick on the sidewalks. And you can grind it down to somewhere around 2 inches. And that's about where you want to end. Then the whole panel needs to come up. Hopefully you can trim the root if it isn't a huge one. We've done some of those already. Any bigger roots, we have to bring the arborist out. Then we look at removing the tree. And we've been doing a lot of spot improvements. And it's just getting to a point where the sidewalks are getting thinner, the raising keeps happening. If you notice, there's some spots with curb issues where the curbs are being lifted, the sidewalk, a few pavement areas. And it is time that we need to be really proactive in our estimation. Our goal is to prevent downtown tripping hazards, at the same time, provide new tree canopy too, right? But I can't eliminate tripping hazards if I have a tree that keeps pushing the sidewalk up all the time. So it's sort of a catch-22.
I've noticed in other cities, they're opening up the sidewalks by the tree and it seems to not push up the further
Yeah.
away. Does that help? Is it the water maybe help the roots grow down? Is that what they're doing? The roots look for water, right?
Correct.
So.
They do.
Nutrients and water, absolutely.
And
So
that's
they
why
have
they
more-
like it under the sidewalk, because we put it on a little bit of gravel there and the water sits under the sidewalk. So they like to go there also. But if you do open it up, you still want to put root barriers in to get them down 2 feet, right? And then you also want to plant with a tree that isn't as aggressive as these. And so the arborist recommended some trees in his
Yeah.
report. Now I'll get with that.
Yeah, and that's a method for stormwater control as well. So you
Mhm.
can cut the curb, you can allow some of the gutter water to get into that tree well, if it's larger. And that's some of the work that Jones and Jones did, is describing some of the efforts that you would have a larger planting area to avoid
Yeah.
the impacts of the street and the sidewalk, but also be able to retain, detain, and treat stormwater at the same time.
What is our time frame on this project here? I mean,
Yeah.
is this like 5 years down the road? I mean, if it is. I
No,
mean,
this is going to bid in
Next
the
month.
next month.
With council's approval, we have some outreach to do. We want to talk to our business community, particularly those that are affected and adjacent to this project. We're open to guidance tonight.
So that we're proposing to do an outreach session here, in the afternoon, or we need to decide on the time. Because if it's business owners, they're at their shops or whatever. So we need to pick a time, but have this same PowerPoint type of presentation with plans available and all that. So we can get questions and get them answers about, what about the tree in front of my place?
And the reason why the timing is you have a planting season you have to meet, right? So you not only have the busier summer season, where you have a lot more pedestrian traffic downtown, but you have a planting season. You want to get these trees in the ground at the appropriate time.
And then importantly too, is the nesting season, that the trees, you want to take them out before the birds start nesting in them also. Because you should wait until the fledglings and you get all that done. And so that's, the April, May sort of thing. So this is a good time because we don't have a high level pedestrian traffic. we do right now, but come January, it should dive off for a while. And so we thought this would be a good project to get to bid now. So, next slide. So here's a copy of the street tree detail. And so you can see the root balls placed down a little lower. And the reason is this is when you walk and look at the grates, the trees are flush with the grates. The bottom of every tree, the roots like to get going there. It's not round anymore. Well, it keeps pushing that grate up in all sorts of different ways. So you'll see the grates sort of scalped out to match the tree. Well, if you put the tree down a little bit, it's round, right? And you have now round, and they come with a round hole in them for a reason. So if you get the tree down a little bit, that works out really good. We're proposing the same type of grate that's there now. There's special order, which surprised me a little bit. I figured, oh God, these grates look normal, but all of them are special order. It's like, I don't know why these foundries don't keep them in stock. Just because they don't want to carry stock. And that's actually sort of normal nowadays too, though. You see a lot of people that are making to order that they don't have the inventory that they used to have. So 9 of the trees remain, and that the arborist from the 2021 report is recommending to put 2.5 to 3 inch caliper trees back in again. So a lot of street trees in subdivisions, those are 1.5 inch caliper trees. So they're smaller trees, right? We called around and we found some nursery stock that are these larger trees. They get going a little quicker, right? They come out higher, they're taller. Yeah, there's a big tree gone, but we're trying to put down or in the biggest tree we can. You can't go, oh, and I learned this lesson the hard way. We put a few in last summer. We ordered some 3.5 inch caliper trees. We had to scalp the root ball because it's only a 4x4 hole. We didn't know that when they came out, when they dug them out, they gave us a lot of roots, right? We had a problem getting the tree down in there. So we need to lay off a little bit on the diameter because 4x4 is not that big. These tree root balls get pretty big. So, anyways, they suggested that we use the fire starter Tupelo and a Princeton Century Ginkgo. And that's the male sterile version of the ginkgo trees. People have asked, we don't want fruit trees as street trees. And the ginkgo female does have fruit on it. This Century Princeton is a tree specifically grown for this type of application. They're really good in urban, and both trees are really good in urban
Next
environments.
slide. You got
Yeah.
pictures.
Yep, so there they are. So the fire starter Tupelo, there's a fall picture of what it looks like. Similar to the trees out here. I mean, they look somewhat similar to the color. And then you can see a young Century Ginkgo tree growing there in a landscape planter. So that's the last slide. Is there questions about the downtown street tree project?
Yeah, how many trees can be not chopped down if we did remediation around the site? And you know what I mean, like how, I know it's 4x4, but if we design around the trees instead of making the trees do what we want, but if we allow for growth of these trees that don't push up the sidewalk because we removed the sidewalk.
That's
So
great question, and we evaluated that. Unfortunately, the existing trees, the roots are extending out a significant way. And I can give you a copy of the construction plans. It has pictures, and we show the removal limits with a red line
For each
on
of
it.
each
And
of the
it's
sites.
significant. Each site is significant damage. That's lifted quite a bit more than 1/4 inch. We ground down, lifted again, that sort of thing. So we did evaluate that, but unfortunately, the variety of pear tree that we have, the roots have gone out a long ways and are pushing up sidewalks well away from the tree.
my concern is how do we know that these new trees aren't gonna be just as, growth oriented as the last trees? Why are we redoing what we've done in the past that didn't work?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so the answer to that is one, we had an arborist select the trees, right? Very specific. We've made a bunch of phone calls. We checked in on these trees to make sure this is the right recommendation. That's correct. We also are putting that 2-foot barrier in. So the trees are planted at the surface and just a small root that's 6 inches down eventually gets big and pushes the sidewalk up. These have to go down 2 feet, go down under and go back up again, which is near impossible. These two different varieties aren't as root bearing also as the Cleveland Select pears.
So this time around, we will make space for that to grow.
Yep.
Okay,
As
that's-
well
I
as
wanna
the,
make it clear that, why, 'cause people are gonna ask me, hey, Miguel, why are we doing this?
I
tree
understand.
and It's not even native and it's like, and then we're gonna do the same problem for 30 years from now. So that's the answer.
yes, sir. And the barriers too. Remember, those are going into.
That's a very important part. Then the right tree is going in there too. And these are columnar trees. You can see they're not trees that like to go like this, which is a problem for parked cars and buildings and all that. So these trees remain a little more columnar.
Well, they're also very attractive, the color choice.
Yep, they are. And so we did mix and match them. I put a note on one of those slides about that. That we didn't do like one side with the Tupelo and then the other side with the ginkgo. We sat there and said, ginkgo, Tupelo, ginkgo. And so we sort of spread them around in different manners. This sort of fit with the streetscape a little better.
What about the maintenance of these trees? As fire starters, seems like the branches are really low, so we're gonna have to.
All trees are a little low when they start with, and so the good news is the 2.5 inch to 3 inch caliper. Those are probably gonna be 14-foot high trees. We can go in right away and take off a few of the lower limbs and that sort of thing. And then you are correct, though, a proactive pruning of any tree is important when it's in an urban environment that's constrained. Because you could have a tree and there's an awning nearby, you need to be cognizant of that. Or a tree is planted, because we're putting back in the same spots, right near a street light. Well, you don't want the tree to grow up into the light and completely block it out. And so Todd Rhodes and our roadway staff, or street division staff, are gonna be on these and keep the limbs and keep them trimmed every year to keep them out of the street lights and off of buildings and that sort of thing.
Do we want them, put them all back in the same spot? Because it seems like if you go down railroad, sometimes they're lined up, and sometimes they're not lined up. There's like one here and one over here. In some places, I mean, do we have to keep them in the same spot? Or do we want them lined up? I mean, would it be
I
just as
mean,
easy to?
There's some economy of scale by putting them in the same spot.
Yeah.
Right? You're not excavate, because you have to excavate that already and place a sidewalk there, whether you put a tree there or not. So you take the tree out, you have to replace the concrete, possibly fill in the well and then move it to another.
How far away are those roots? Possibly 10, 12 feet away. You might have to excavate a whole lot more to.
Once you
You pull
cut
the
the
root
tree,
out and just cut it.
Yeah, you dig out the tree well, remove all the roots. If you're removing the concrete, right, a concrete panel, you'll excavate the roots out from that, but you won't get them completely underneath good concrete.
And remember that there's an outlet at each one of these trees for the Christmas lights. There's a little box there and there's a conduit that goes from there. So you can plug in for the tree lights and whatever else we have going on down the road, that we do have power at each tree. So if you put them in other spots, that power isn't gonna be there. We're gonna have to run that and take up even more concrete to get it to the new spot.
When I walked it, there was somewhat of a pattern associated with at least the structure of it, but I agree that I don't think there's perfect alignment all the way down it, but
I'm just wondering.
yeah,
If you're
no,
doing it,
you're
I
right.
just wonder if you're doing it, why not do it?
I understand.
I mean, the comment I would have is a potential to add some, and I would say, yeah, there's some locations that the trees weren't put in, and whether it was property owner didn't want them at that time or whatever, because they were put in the 90s. I don't know what the reason was, but there are some locations where additional trees could be added in the future.
Code is, completely lacking. That's why we have some of the temporary or portable structures there, trees, so long-term, we'd love to add some.
Can you go back to the site map that showed the project area? Yep. The other thing that we noticed, council, is that all of these do not have formal grates or anything in them. They're basically just bare holes. So that will, in order to be more consistent, that the intent is to replace those over there. And I don't believe those have power to them.
Those do not. In the standards manual, though, it's coming to you revised manual February, March. The downtown standard will be trees with grates. If you guys are accepting of that, just in the downtown area, as you get outside of the downtown area, which the formal definition, help me here, Mark, is from, is it 7th?
The land use designation is seventh to First, Franklin, south side of Franklin to north side of Dakota.
Do we have infrastructure like pipes underneath any of these trees?
Great question. So, they're on Railroad, our AC water line, that we were proposing to, replace, that, it's near those trees. It's right in that area. So the contractor is gonna call for locates and needs to be very aware that there's a water line 3 feet down. And hopefully he's not going down that deep, right? So, great question.
Inside the curb. Near the
Not,
curb,
it's
right?
near the
Yeah,
curb.
near
Yep,
the curb.
yep.
So we're not worrying about future routes, with the pipes.
No.
That
And
was-
the
that was
sewer
very-
lines are predominantly in the alleys, and so we shouldn't have roots.
And super deep typically.
We're not worried about the trees we're pulling next to. I'm sorry,
No, you're-
2030, when we go to replace that pipe, there won't be a negative impact there.
No, it's far enough away in the lane. If you go to the clock tower area, you see a patch right there. There's a valve right there. It's, 4 feet off of the curb, so it's far enough away. It won't be an issue.
They're living beings, right? They're trees. They're gonna, sometimes they do what you don't think they're gonna do, right? We can't guarantee at any place, at any time, that there's not gonna be a curb raise, it's not gonna go find a water line or sort of. What we're gonna do is try to mitigate that. What we're proposing is mitigating that to the best of our ability. You can't completely predict what's gonna happen with them. We've all had probably plants in our yards or in our houses that we can't explain what happened to them, and that's what
Mhm.
happens here, especially in a stressed environment downtown. Lots of asphalt, lots of brick, lots of buildings, cars, things like that. It's finding nutrients. We'll also water them the first couple of years. And you saw the detail had a watering tube. And instead of watering those from the surface, you water those through the tube, and then the water goes to the bottom of the root ball and encourages the roots to grow down too. So those are measures to help promote these things to grow in the right manner. You can see kind of the tube.
Yeah, it's there in the
watering-
center.
Watering tube right in the
Yep.
center.
Did you have that before?
We did, yeah. Yeah,
How many feet tall are these new trees gonna be at first?
Yeah, they're probably gonna be in the 12-foot range. It might be 14s, a few of them, depending on, what nursery you get them from. Not one nursery unfortunately has our full order is what we're running into right now. So we've been calling a lot of different nurseries to line these trees up, so.
Looking at this map, it looks like there's 10 that are labeled remaining, the info said 9. There's three.
Because I did that in there so you guys could catch that.
Good job.
Yes.
I'm like counting, I'm
So
like.
I counted them on the map and I put 9 in there, but if you count 10, it's 10. Yeah, you definitely want to use the map.
Right,
Yep.
there's 3 here, so that
I
would
might
be
have missed
10.
one when I was.
There
That would
counting.
actually be 10 remaining then.
Yep.
And not 9, if the map's
Oh,
correct.
missed those two.
Correct.
Okay.
and those three are. I think that's a plum on the corner, is it not? Up in the top right, remaining, I think that's a
you're right.
plum and a couple.
Yeah.
Those are cherries.
They're
Yep.
in that,
Yep.
they're in that median between what was. Mariana Plaza and First Street, so it's kind of got a lot.
And they're causing a few sidewalk problems, or I think we've ground that once. We're watching those.
You remember there were large fir trees there in front of Mariana several years ago. They were doing that well in that environment. Those were removed a couple years ago. Well, 10 years ago. Couple years ago,
Yeah.
couple years ago in my.
So when we have the neighborhood meeting on this project, I want to invite you folks so you can hear this again, right? And talk to people more about this because this does impact the core of the community here, right? And this is important that we get as much public outreach done as we can and people understand why we're doing this. right? So it's more of a hazard mitigation type of project. Tripping hazards. Aaron, did you have anything else?
Nope, I'm good.
The trees have a benefit though to our downtown, right? They shade, they absorb water transpiration, you know. They treat some of our water, we do some of the improvements down the road. We can actually utilize them to, you know, retain and treat more stormwater at the same time aesthetically, you know, they're pleasing. They'll cool buildings, we can light them, with Christmas lights in the season we're into right now, so, you know, you could say, why put them in, why replace them, but I think that there's a lot of benefit to your, especially your downtown and a pedestrian
Yeah.
centric downtown to have this landscape such as what's being.
I mean,
Yeah.
isn't there still an option though to open up all that area where the trees are for like rain gardens, you know, to collect more rainwater and just,
It's pretty tight.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think that would be, and I, no disrespect, I don't think that would be a practical application because it is so urbanized in there. Maybe if you had, and we've been talking about that, there are some properties around here, especially in the downtown, and the name of ECDeb, utilize those for stormwater management or something to integrate with parks, those kinds of things to get people downtown.
So in the revamp is likely you would eliminate some parking stalls and widen the sidewalk and leave that more for trees. The problem is the sidewalk isn't super wide, so if you take and start putting big planters in there, you've really minimized the walking room because they're not super wide right now. So the Jones and Jones plan had removing some parking stalls in there to widen the tree planters out.
You're still using the gutter line to convey the stormwater, right?
Right.
And so when it's conveyed down that gutter, you have to get it into that rain garden, whatever that is. So if you put it outside of that gutter, it can move into it. That's why you put it in the parking stall. You'd have to reconfigure. Boy, on the back side of that curve quite a bit. I
Right.
think, To meet that, the retrofit.
I think I have some pictures in my phone from another city.
Great.
Well,
I'll
there is-
find and share with you.
Yeah.
No, please do. Tacoma, very innovative in the sense that downtown Tacoma, they did that. What they basically did was buffer strips
Mhm.
on the side of the road. So the problem with that is it takes room to do that. And how much do you need and how much does it impact ADA and sidewalks and all that kind of stuff. So you really need to look at it before you decide which pathway you want to go.
It's a big numbers project, a lot of money.
For
right?
sure.
To put in planters and take out paving, because there's paving there right now, that needs to come out so the trees will go down, the roots will go down, right? So we're talking money and then 1 foot storm drain in it also, but we're thinking that's a good vision for 2030 is to look at
Yeah,
that.
I
then.
think there'd be great prospect for kind of a sample project or demonstration. project in the
Absolutely.
Future, you know, particularly on
Absolutely.
Coda or even a portion of Railroad where we could do something like that for a block or a portion of a block and really show how it works and demonstrate it, look like. If you will, I'd consider this more of a maintenance project, right? More than a renovation or new construction.
I like the Coda idea though, because of the Green Street in that 2016 downtown plan. That it's supposed to be a green corridor, the permeable paving parking lot and all that. We have some pavement that's significantly distressed. And so I'd like to maybe see in 2026, doing a pilot project of a piece of Coda Street. The streets are heavily damaged. We got to go in there and do some repairs there. But look at some of the Green Street type of ideas for a block or two. I think that's a great idea for the 2026 budget year. We obviously didn't budget that in 2025, and we have a full load of projects right now.
I just meant it'd be nice, easy to do it.
No, yeah, right.
And it would also fit into the phase 2. permit. Some stuff
You're right.
It helps.
Coming
It
down the road.
really
You
does.
got it. Absolutely.
You're right, man.
It's actually here.
The road is here.
There's we're right beside the Timberland Library is a very nice spot where I think we're integrated a lot of environmental design.
Cool.
Yeah.
Is that something we could do in the future, 2030, or even incorporate some of those things, some of those features that will help with lighting, water flow, and also be a nice place just to sit down and have a picnic? I don't know, just thinking about if we want like Coda Street, for example, in the future, if we have the art district. And then railroad itself, like,
Right.
this is why I asked that other question is like, how can we design or with the environment instead of
Yeah.
against the environment? I know we've got the grid, north, south, first, second, third, and all the streets are named after trees. You know, that's like every county in America, right? So,
Right.
1890s planning, Victorian planning, but we're in the 21st century now. Can we do more environmental design that work with the trees instead of cutting down trees, and that work with the water instead of forcing the water in one way? Can we do something more gentle and more ecologically, what's the word I'm looking for?
Better,
Yeah.
better, in essence, better, ecologically speaking, yeah.
So the stormwater comprehensive plan that's scheduled for next year is going to be talking about exactly that. So more to come on that subject, especially downtown, creeks, fish, that sort of thing. So there'll be a lot more to come next year with that project.
Let's have that in the back of our mind when we
Understand.
design and start taking down stuff and redoing stuff. How can we set it up so that we can, in the future, more easily transition to a place that's more like that?
Sure, yep, that makes sense. It does. I agree too. Are we okay? Membrane? What? Jay, I want you to do some of this, because I'll take the police piece.
Okay.
I got the membrane. So, right now, membrane tree, a satellite treatment plant also. There's 30,000 gallons of reclaimed water on that site today. Right now, the State Patrol and Department of Corrections, their needs are much, much higher than that. And so the goal is to store water there for peak higher demands. And that way they don't have to pump as much out of their wells that they have on their sites. So Goldsboro Creek, it's in that aquifer, especially the Department of Corrections, they have a big well there. And when they got to draw water out to do their laundry and do that sort of thing, then they send us the sewer, right? We treat it and it's reclaimed water, but we don't have enough storage to hit their peak demand. They use a lot of water there. So in 2018, Gray and Osborne was contracted to do a pre-design report of what would a larger reclaimed tank look like, how big, that sort of thing. And then, so in 2020, Squaxin Island Tribe jumped in and threw some money at the design and to get it figured out, because they saw the need that, you know, less water from the Department of Corrections means more water for Goldsboro and fish. Next slide. So in 2021, the pre-design report was completed, and it included tank sizing, location, tank material types, and project costs. So here's an aerial view of the plant. Off to the right is 101, off to the right even farther. And you can see where the tank's gonna be located.
The highway's here.
And so anyways, they recommended a 500,000 gallon glass lined bolted steel tank. I know that's a lot of words. So we compared it to concrete tanks and the cost, and over the life cycle, the 50-year life cycle of a tank. Concrete tanks are nearly double, quite a bit more expensive, but they don't have as much maintenance. The welded steel tanks compared to the glass line bolted steel tanks, we compared those, and those are some of the charts that we use to determine what is the best for our current budget and long-term operations and maintenance. And we determined that the bolted tank with the glass lining on it doesn't require a lot of maintenance. The welded steel does. You got to paint those every 20 years. And like the high school reservoir, we're behind on that, right? Getting these things painted over the years. So we thought that was a really good choice. It was pretty cost effective long-term. One other thing, we're at 95% plans. That's on the next slide, but there's some gopher habitat areas. So this is the Mazama gopher, right? And so we had to do a habitat study for it because it's a threatened species. I don't think it's protected yet.
It's not listed yet. It's a species of concern.
So anyways, we went around, we had a biologist come out, and we have a protection area for the gopher and all sorts of things to mitigate the tank impacts with this project. Next slide. So in 2022, we received a $2 million grant for the final design and construction of the 500,000 gallon bolted steel tank. And we're at 95% construction plans right now. Council approved the geotechnical investigation. We had a contract amendment that came up at the last council meeting. We need to do a little bit more geotechnical work with that. We're ready to build something that's going to look like that, the bolted steel tank there.
And we did the permitting in-house and it's done. We just need to get going.
Get the geotechnical behind us. Any final comments from that? And then we hope to be out to bidding in February and into construction. If you bid in February, you guys will be awarding most likely in April, construction in late May, something like that, maybe June, that sort of thing. This type of project, there aren't a lot of people that do concrete tanks, that do welded tanks, or do bolted steel tanks. They're all like different type of vendors. And so there's, 3 to 6 firms that do this type of thing. It's specialty type of construction in any tank design. So we want to get out to bid early in the year. It's a really good time. People are looking for projects to carry their crews through the summer and that sort of thing.
How much, are they the only two people that use a purple pipe right now? If there's any different role?
No, Tractor Supply.
Tractor Supply.
For irrigation, I believe.
How far purple pipe do we have in the city, or how far can we run this right now?
That's the extent of it heading north from the satellite plant out to the production center.
So in the comprehensive plan, it has a study that we need to do another small comp plan for the reclaimed water system to identify who the users are. Like at the high school, for example, if they had a grass field out there, pretty heavy water use, right? Or a large park with a lot of grass play fields, golf courses are big. We're looking for the larger users, right? Sending reclaimed water to a residential 5,000 square foot lot and house doesn't make a lot of sense because they use it 3-4 months out of the year and then it's off the majority of the time. Well, the construction cost to put that facility in and pipe it and go through all the permitting and all that isn't logical. We need to look for the higher use.
Commercial industrial use.
Commercial industrial processing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of processing that they take this water and go finish it to even a higher level and then use it in their manufacturing business.
And this definitely helps with potable water. Keep it.
Absolutely. We're not drawing it out of the wells. It's not coming out of the Goldsboro Creek aquifer. And then hopefully we have more producers too that supply their wastewater to the plant to produce more reclaimed water at the same time.
And that leads to a little different discussion is at the same plant where we got a grant to, the intake to the plant is called the headworks. It's where we screen the sewer and there's a grit chamber where you drop the grit out. Aaron and I are working on that project. We're in the preliminary design phase of it. And so what happens is the Department of Correction sends a lot of land out. They got huge washers and dryers in there and we get a heavy lint load. Well, the membrane filters are like your coffee filter, right? Much more stronger and all that. Lint, they do not like lint. So we've been working with them, but the thing about having more users, hopefully it will dilute it a little more in the future. We're gonna get them to control it on site. We're talking to them about it. But more users help that type of issue with a larger user that's sending us some off-spec water. Next slide.
I've talked, I don't think I've talked to this council about, I talked to previous members when I first started here. This is a project. In 2023, the city was awarded a direct appropriation from the legislature of about $200,000 to provide some security improvements on the east side of the Civic Center. I'm going to update this even further, Jay, because we are basically ready to go on this project. I had sat down with Brooke and our intent is we'd like to go out to bid here right before Christmas and then continue it so that
So
we.
I have a second error. I produced this whole slideshow. It's in February or March. I put that in there. And so cross that out.
That was the only
Eric
mistake.
says before Christmas.
No, it's happening because it's on Brooks' schedule and we're gonna make this happen.
Good.
So
That's good.
this is a bigger topic conversation that I just want the council to be aware of. Part of what we were trying to do here is try to set up the city in its entirety to provide security system for all of our resources. So there was a lot of groundwork that myself, Cody in IT, but also facilities, that's a second mistake. Third, facilities, we all sat and went through various vendors. We found a software application, it's called Genetec, that is going to meet our needs. There's a lot of advanced pieces to it. It has recognition software with regard to if there's people within the outside of your perimeter, the camera sees it, it will actually alert that they're not in, but there's somebody out. So there's a lot of things associated with this. And the reason why we had to make that decision is we can't run what we're going to do on this police fencing project without the brain, which is basically the Genetec.
They're gonna have some cameras and some gate opening cards, right? And so we don't have a system here at the Civic Center. So this Genetec system is the camera, it takes the video inputs, and then also the database for the card swipes, door swipes, gates, that sort of thing. So they'll actually operate. So that brain though will be used for
Other places.
wastewater plants, the maintenance yard, well sites. The whole city is going to be using the same system and this, it's in the server room, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So anyways, we're going to be launching from that and adding additional assets to that system.
So our intent is, well, let me continue on with the project. Williams Architecture, we're done. They're basically done, and we have specifications, plan sets, and a cost estimate. We did include another 300,000 of additional resources in the 2025 budget to cover that. And I'll show you, I got a plan set. I'll actually show you the physical changes that we're going to be making out there so that you can be aware of it. We also have a separate grant that I believe Mark got for, and I think it's another direct appropriation of 250,000 to start doing the other facilities in this. So obviously the utilities are probably going to take care of a lot of their stuff at pumps, but we have other facilities. We have museums, we have parks, we have all that kind of stuff. Right. Right. So I really think, that's why I really wanted to explain this to you, because there are ramifications citywide here in the sense that we're basically establishing the baseline, and from here on out, we can expand our security at all of our facilities. So I think that's a very positive
What it
thing.
needs essentially to simplify is getting rid of keys.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
access control, you get rid of keys, and if that key is, oh, you still have keys and that key is lost, you have the potential for a security breach. If you have a card reader, we can disable that card within minutes from a phone or a laptop.
Instant.
And it's done. You don't have to worry about it. It can go in the garbage. We can produce another one. We can provide access to whoever in the city we want to whatever door that might be. So it gives us a lot more flexibility.
Right.
And a lot more security.
That's not phase one though.
Depending, some of it may be, we're gonna assess next steps with the 250. So the fencing project, no.
But yeah, we budgeted for the door locks once and then we had to buy a alarm panel for the
About alarm
library.
panel at the library, yeah, we wanted to buy essentially what Eric
Yes.
just mentioned, the Genetec
Yeah.
system. We wanted to purchase that and start kind of phasing this project in. Exactly. We had a fire alarm replacement at the library. We redirected those funds. So now we've got a great step with the secure fencing project. Genetec's on board. That'll be phase one, phase two.
Yep.
3 and 4 will
Yep.
come down the road by $260,000.
These cards, this is not magnetic, it doesn't have the chip and stuff in it, but eventually this is how you get in and out of facilities. Wastewater plant, we get deliveries sometimes in the afternoon, sometimes we're shorthanded, the gate could be closed there, they could be up at the membrane plant. They can call us and say, hey, I got a delivery, I can see them on the counter, a camera, I know who it is, I can open the gate from my cell phone, right? So there's a lot of advantages to this system.
Next slide, please. And I'm going to stand up because I want to physically show you guys the components of this, and please add in if I miss something. So in essence, this is the existing Civic Center. This is basically two pictures here, kind of side by side. with regard to.
So Aaron, where are we sitting right now on that picture? So we're nearing the back wall, the parking lot's on that side. Okay.
Correct. So. It's this street.
Yep.
Yep, that's correct.
Yep.
That's correct. So the intent, you guys, and there is an example. There was a very specific fence that I was told, we want this particular type of fence. And the reason being is it's very specific, it's much taller. And instead of just going straight up, these are at an angle. My understanding is that no human can physically lift themselves up and over that to get into that area. It's the way that it's been designed. So in essence, what we're going to do is fence the entirety of these areas here. We're gonna have an entrance gate, an out gate. We're also gonna have an entrance gate on both sides so that you could use the key. I'm not gonna say that officers have special needs, but they do. Part of the issue is they gotta get out of here fast. So one of the real benefits that we are getting from the Genotech software is it actually will have a camera here, and as the officers back out, it reads the license plate, it's in the system, it automatically opens the gate for them, so they don't have to push buttons or tag something because they gotta get out of there, they gotta go help somebody. So that's one of the components that we're adding to that. In addition, we're gonna add some more lighting out here, probably, I think 2 or 3 more additional light standards. It's all gonna be focused on that area. So you're, in essence, gonna have a fenced area with those controls in there, with gates, sliding gates, those types of things. And it will be protected, which is what we want.
So the sidewalk is gonna remain open along the parking lot, the paver parking lot, the other side.
Correct.
Right? So when I'm standing there, that fence, you said, how high is the fence? Do you recall? Does it show that? I can't read that.
Read it,
I think
yeah.
it's 7.
Yeah, it's
7
about
feet.
7 feet, I think, total.
And then when I'm looking at it, is it black?
It's black. And
Okay.
it's all wrought iron, it's wrought iron in essence.
And then the
it's-
top has a swoop on it?
Yeah, has
Okay.
an angle on it with the idea that you can't physically lift yourself over and climb over that. That's at least what they said, the salesperson. Right.
So essentially, it's like what the sheriff's office
Yeah,
has, but with the
right.
angle at the top instead.
Yeah.
Oh, spot on, and I'm sorry, I
Yeah,
screwed
you're good.
up, no. There is an example of this, that's what I wanted to tell you guys, go up to the PUD. The PUD,
Oh, yeah.
their shop has the exact same fence that we wanna utilize here.
Yeah,
And
and when you
it's
throw a
sloped.
disc over, you're not getting it back.
Spot on. So light.
Our police will
improvements,
throw it back.
a new- Lights, another camera system, what's really gonna benefit, and this is, I mean, this is much needed in the sense that we have cubbies.
Yeah.
And basically you have to kind of go into a cubby to get into a door. The problem that we have there is that anybody could stand on the outside, not be seen and pack an officer, and we can't have that.
Or damage a vehicle?
Or, yeah, exactly. So that's the scale of the project, you guys. Are there more questions?
So council, what was it, Mark? 8 months ago, we vacated the right of way. It was with this current council.
Longer than that.
Was it longer?
It was
than that?
before I started.
No, it wasn't. You were here.
You sure?
I think I gave the presentation.
Okay.
City years.
And
You don't remember it?
again, we intend to probably, the bid opening will be in early January and we will get constructing very shortly thereafter. So I'm working with our chief to make that happen. So that's moving forward. Are there any other questions on that project? Yes, we do. Okay, next slide, please. This is Jay's legacy project. Olympic Highway North. This is, man, I'm so excited about this project because there's such a need up there. The road is in bad shape. And in
I couldn't
essence,
tell by the photos. I mean,
It's
it looks good to me. No.
so in addition to that, so we were awarded a TIB grant. We applied last year and were notified shortly thereafter, right before the end of last year, that we received it. We are meeting tomorrow. We've already done the RFQ process. We have 3 consultants that we are going to be interviewing because this is federal money, the local programs group, the engineering group has to be involved with us. So they are coming to the interview to help us interview, but our intent, and we're trying to make this happen a lot quicker. Because the reality is that, you know, you could backburner this and take, this is an important project for us. I drive it every day as I'm coming in, and the reality is this road needs to get repaired. There's ADA improvements that we're going to be doing here. Additionally, there are some things, and I'm sure we'll bring this back to the council, of other types of upgrades that we may want to do out there. As an example, is it K Street?
Yeah.
There's a signal out there, you guys, that's a temporary signal setup. It's all on the hanging guy wires. What we want to do is formally get some mast arms out there and actually make it in the, you know, a functioning area there. So there is
Lighting improvements likely to.
very much, yeah.
That will be looking at the existing lighting system, be working with PUD on potentially doing some upgrades to the lighting system. I'd like to see more green in the streetscape if
Agreed.
possible. What that all means, I'm not sure, but you can see there's available landscape planters perhaps in the right of way where we can put some street trees planted correctly with root barriers, right? Get some of that in. Maybe evaluate the median area where there are no driveways. If there's a long section median or double turn lane where there is no driveways, maybe go to a few planted medians there just to break this up and make it less concrete and buildings and cars, right?
Also, council, I've been looking back at our parks plans and our trails plans, and there was discussion in one of the trails plan of some sort of trail path. I'm assuming it was along here, along Olympic Highway North. Ultimately, if we had resources, it would be kind of cool if we could do kind of a meandering trail. It's all dependent on right of way and all that other kind of stuff, but something a little bit different from just sidewalk curb gutter down the whole thing. And I think that was the intent with whatever was being proposed, some sort of pathway along there. I'm assuming to get from downtown to uptown.
Yeah, and the start was coming up the hill and all that, and then it ends. The comment I have here, though, is that $3.6 million is for the roadway.
Yeah.
Right? And the longer we wait, the worse it gets and the more expensive it gets too. So it's imperative that we don't dilly-dally. So that's why our consultant selection is gonna have an aggressive design schedule and try to get that part done. I'm okay with some wandering for a bit, but we won't need to stay focused, right? Because the goal is to not cost us a bunch more money because we waited too long. Because you can see the pavement is literally, it's coming up in chunks. And what happens is those are full dig outs, is what you call it. We're taking the base rock, going down back to native soil, bringing rock back in, patching it to the existing surface, and then overlaying it. So every time you have a dig out like that, it gets expensive and your costs go sky high. And then inflation too.
Right.
The longer we wait, things cost more.
Is there any stormwater, water, or sewer upgrades while we're tearing this road out that are?
Very minimal, very minimal. Good question.
Because we're not adding new impervious surface. If we were adding new roadway, then yes, in this instance, we're reconstructing the road. It's an existing impact that's already occurred.
The water line, there's a couple crossings of water lines that are cast iron that they go across the road, but they don't go down the road. So we're gonna be looking at getting the water guys out there and getting those out of the way, or putting it as part of the project and have a separate fund. The water fund would pay for that work, not the $3.6 million.
There, as part of this project, and one of the reasons why it got federalized is we're not robbing Peter to pay Paul at all. What we're doing is we have another project that we received grant funds. We're taking one of the projects in that system of 4 projects and applying that to Highway North at C Street, I believe.
I Street.
I Street, I'm sorry.
Pedestrian crossing, flashing beacons like we have.
Improvements, that is serving as our match money, the 490 that we have here, that is our match money for this project. So part of this meeting with consultants tomorrow, we basically on the RFQ, they're going to be designing both projects for us. We want to do economy of scales. We want do this more cheaply. So that's how this is probably going to play out, is that they were going to be designing both of those projects. We'll use that match money to cover our match for the TIB project. So
So it's called the Systemic Pedestrian Improvements. Interesting that.
the other project,
It's
the
federal
other project,
funds,
yeah.
but that is up at Shelton Outfitters, the pedestrian improvements there. A safe crossing and some sidewalk up there. It's currently Third Street, a flashing beacon, sort of as you go down the way here, that another set at Third and Railroad. It's a signal analysis at Seventh and Railroad, left turn movements, that sort of thing. It gets a little jammed up in the afternoon. And then the last one, the fourth project on that is that I Street pedestrian signal. Somebody was hurt there. And so that's part. So you have already a crossing at K. We need to look at that crossing. That just reminded me.
There's one at C now.
And there's another one at C. So we have one at I, one at K, and at C. But that system, I want to make sure that it's ADA
Yeah.
compatible, the push buttons, the
Oh,
audible,
right, right.
all of that. It's going to need to be upgraded with the project
Yep.
also.
Okay.
Okay, we got some work.
That project?
Yeah, that was, I think it's,
That's pretty much, yeah,
I said, so Mary, I found that on our website of all things.
it's
And
beautiful.
I'm assuming you'd take. So it's like, this is a fitting picture for this time of year, so.
Anybody got any questions for staff? Great,
This is just a-
lot of information.
This is just a, so what's going on. We hope that, there's enough information here for you tonight to, develop any questions and continue, continue these discussions as we move forward these projects. You'll see the contracts being awarded and coming to council. The Railroad Avenue project is one that really is, is really important to us to get out to the public, get out to our business community, particularly on Railroad Avenue, talk about that in the future. So we'll make sure that we have every opportunity for comments there. As you know, it can be emotional when you start removing trees, but it's also emotional when you see somebody trip over a sidewalk there. So it's at the same time. So we're trying to weigh all those matters with particularly with that project.
The more words are emotional for those trees coming down.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank
A
you.
lot of information. Right. The council will now adjourn for an executive session to review the performance of a public employee allowed by RCW 42.30.110. The council will be in executive session for 30 minutes and return at 7:40, 7:50? What that? That's what I thought. All right. We're out.
We can take a quick break. We set up a separate room in the back here, so we can back there.
Yep. Stretch your legs. Stand.
I know.
These hard chairs.
I tell ya.
So I, for my transit meeting, when the chair was soft. right, we're back in our regular meeting. Does the council have any new items for discussion tonight?
I have a question. Can you remind me for the levy for the emergency services, how much that is for? So the renewal one that we're coming up on, okay,
Sorry, from Transmission Benefit District? Yeah.
is that what we're talking about? Okay, yeah,
The Transmission Benefit District, expires in April of 26. It is 0.2%.
okay, and so can you tell me approximately how much that brings in?
700
Okay. Okay, that works, if approximate, I can put that. Can I bring something up? Is this the time to bring something up? Can I do that?
It's,
Or-
it's time for discussion, so.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I am concerned about pushing through the 0.01% for homeless because I'm afraid that we're gonna lose the trust of the people. If we lose the trust of the people, we're not gonna get this. So we're gonna lose $700,000 or so for 300,000. Because I'm afraid what's going to happen is they're gonna say, you passed this on us without asking us. We didn't get a say in it, so no. And I'm going to tell you that because when things come across to us, when we get to vote on it, and it says, do you want to rescind what they voted on without you? I always say, yeah, rescind that. I don't think it's fair when people make decisions without the vote of the people. So I think that doing this now, I think you're gonna lose the trust of the community. And I don't think it's fair when we have $700,000 out there that we could lose for the good of the community, for everybody, for this. And I just wanted to put that out there. I think it's really important that we can reconsider this.
I'm, being that this is a move forward item to the action agenda for next Tuesday, I don't think it's an appropriate place to talk about this. Donna, do we know Robert's rules, if this has been moved? that This is the action, we would discuss it again next week, so I'm not sure this is the proper. So I'm not sure that this is the proper venue to discuss it again until Tuesday. I could be wrong. Is anybody got a Robert rules?
I asked if I could.
No, correct. I just don't know this is the right.
Well, it depends what the discussion is, I think. I mean, if you're asking for deliberation here, yeah. I think
Yeah.
that-
I'm not asking deliberation. I just wanted to ask the question about the dollar amounts.
Okay. Any other discussion?
For that topic.
Oh, this is for new discussion, yeah.
So, something I wanted to bring up, because I want to look into how we can get, better hand protection for officers. We just had an officer get stabbed, and that is a very valuable officer that we have down for how many weeks? And, you know, having better hand protection, I think, could have prevented a lot of it. Thankfully, you know, the situation worked out the way it did. It was just his hand. But with something like that happening here, I spoke with the county commissioner about this today. He said it's a no-brainer that we should try and work together. Maybe they can get funding and we can get something together so that we can buy a bigger bulk rate of, you know, whatever kind of hand gear we can do, because I don't want to hear things like that happening here in our community. Our officers are out there every day dealing with interesting folks. I had a guy threaten to stab me long ago, you know what I mean? So if we can do anything to protect them, the few that we do have, I want to see that move forward.
So is there like a glove out there that
Yeah,
protects?
there's a few.
I'll make sure that, yeah.
I
make
didn't
sure
know
the
that.
Chief knows there's support here, as far as I'm concerned, that's personal protective equipment.
Oh, yeah.
That is provided by the city of Shelton, right, for our first responders. Well, for all staff when it's for the appropriate job that they're performing, whether it's, you know, ear protection, eye protection for those that are working in those environments, or it's something like that for our officers. We have moved forward with, replacement of tasers. I'll let you know that we entered into agreement. We've got we've got old tasers.
Yeah,
We've also, you know, we've obviously made some commitments with Enterprise, for some new vehicles next year. We're trying to do the best we can to make sure, that these very important individuals in our police department are outfitted to the best of our, so, yeah, it's the highest priority, because that's all our. Absolutely, well, talk to chief.
Yeah.
I would imagine
Should be something they like.
the gloves aren't, yeah, exactly right, I mean, you know, they'll have to wear them, or decide to wear them. Absolutely, we need to provide equipment.
I didn't know they actually made one that wasn't.
Oh, yeah. Good stuff.
There's, well, one more thing, there's an uptick in stray dogs and cats and, homelessness for those, or, and they're being returned or finding places for them to foster and, so that's another topic that I'd like to get back on, asking the county, what can we do together to mitigate some of the problems with stray dogs and cats? I know all the service providers are full. In fact, the kitten rescue, I think, doesn't even have any more cages to get out to trap and release anymore. Our own animal control is overloaded. Humane Societies just had that super huge animal control incident where there were dozens and dozens of animals. And this is a trend that's going up, especially after COVID's over and they're just a little bit less. People are taking care of their animals less and they're getting out. So something that I think is an important topic that we should consider talking about in the future, continue to find solutions to. And as much as I want to thank the mayor for offering that $1,000 out of his own pocket to help adoptions, but just the personal giving of a few people is not gonna make up for what's needed out there. So we need to think about how can we work as a community to make sure that we have funding and facilities in place for the animals. So anyway, that's it.
You know, there's many caring individuals, and organizations out there that can do partnership to better, impact, yeah, that population of animals that are being left there out the street. So,
Any other new items for discussion? All right, the study session is adjourned at 8 p.m. Verizon time.